Oh, it's running on its own. What's going on, you guys? Welcome to another video on the 1985 RX-7 that's on hydraulics. Currently already got started in this video. We are draining the fuel tank. That fuel looks nasty. You guys, if you guys are new and you don't know, this was my dad's 1985 Mazda RX-7 that he custom built into a lowrider. It's got the 1985 ocean blue color. There was only 500 RX-7s made. 13B rotary engine. You can tell it is on hydraulics. Those LA spoke rims. Fully custom interior with a 5-speed manual. It's got a subwall. My dad did a custom soft top on it. This is a very unique car. There's not another RX-7 like it. But in today's video, we are going to be getting this RX-7 running and driving. If you guys watched the last video, you watched me and my friends get this thing running for the first time after sitting for 30 years. I'm sure you guys are going to be clowning me in the comments for the bald head. It's getting about that time of the year where it's getting hot as hell outside. So your boy got a buzz cut. My dad said the reason why he parked this car, there was a fuel leak somewhere from the fuel injectors to the fuel plenum. He wasn't exactly sure what was causing the fuel leak. Maybe a gasket or O-ring. But that's what we're going to figure out in today's video if it still does leak. After we get this fuel drained out, we're going to put new fuel in. Make sure all the batteries still got charged. Obviously, it still has spark. As you guys could tell from the last video, it cranked up on its own. So other than that, we will hopefully be getting this thing started again and driving on its own in today's video. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Give it a thumbs up. Comment down below before you watch it and let me know if you think this thing's gonna drive today. Alright guys, so we just got back from the gas station. I got 5 gallons of 87. Put 2 of these 2-cycle engine oil mixes. One of these is 8 ounces. I put both of these in there, so that's 16 ounces. So for the 5 gallons, that's gonna be a 40-to-1 oil ratio mix. I'm gonna have my buddy Jack go ahead and put all the fuel in.
Hold it up for me there, just to be safe.
All right, so we got the new fuel in. Turn the key back on real quick. The fuel pump is running way better than it did in the last video.
It probably won't. It probably won't.
Give it gas a little more. All right, now when you crank it, just keep on giving it gas so I can spray gas and hopefully it'll prime those lines to push gas through. All right, give it gas. Just keep on tapping it. It's running. I don't know if it's gonna run on its own though. Let's see. Oh yeah, she's running. All right, try to give it a lot of gas. Like rev it up a little bit. One more time. All right, see if it'll idle. Oh, it's idling. All the freaking smoke this thing puts out. Now this car is gonna smoke a lot because you guys know I was pre-mixing it with 2-stroke oil. Didn't know anything about rotaries or 2-strokes. They don't just run off regular gas, you mix oil in them. Now the rotary engines, they have their own oil pumps in the bottom of the engine. It pumps the motor oil up through the apex seals and through the motor and the gas. So it lubes up all the seals and the bearings in the motor. That way they don't blow up. It's actually safer to pre-mix these RX-7s just in case if that oil pump ever quits on you, because you don't really know if it'll quit on you because it's in the engine. So now that we've gotten it running and we know it's not getting fuel like it should, we're going to start with taking fuel lines off, blowing through them, trying to see if they're clogged up or anything. And if that does not work, we'll look at the fuel pump and see what's going on with that. I don't believe we're going to have an issue with what my dad was having with this car in 96, where it was leaking fuel somewhere from the fuel injection or the fuel lines or where the fuel plenum is. Yet, because the fuel is still not getting to the fuel injection system yet. So once we can figure out where the gas is getting clogged up or stopped at and not coming to the motor, then we will be able to see if it's still leaking fuel. It should run on its own. Should hopefully be able to get this thing and run it down the road a few times. So while we're letting this thing cool off, since we did just notice we do have a coolant leak, probably gonna have to get a new radiator. I'm not sure. I don't believe it's any of the hoses. It looks like it's coming out of the radiator itself. I did grab some of this stop radiator leak. Maybe if it's some small leak, it might stop it up and help it until we do figure out where the leak is coming from or just buy a new radiator. So off camera, I just realized that this thing does have a horn. I didn't even know it did, but listen to this thing. It's got daggone air horns under there. My dad definitely knew how to pimp his own ride. I could just stare at this thing for days. The paint job on it is so clean. And I really love the interior. You that are constantly commenting for me to clean this thing, get it detailed, and vacuum all this out. This thing was sitting for 30 years for you that don't know. It's going to be dusty and dirty. The stuff in the driver's seat on the floorboard is from mice going in and out from the time it was sitting in the garage. But once this thing runs and drives, I will be getting this thing fully detailed inside and out. And obviously doing a full service on this thing. Everything it needs mechanically to run right and run good. It is currently the next day. Me and Otis are here in the shop with the RX-7. I unconnected the main fuel line. I got a mason jar set up right here. I'm gonna hook this battery up. I'm gonna turn the ignition over and see if the fuel pump is actually pumping the fuel through the fuel lines. All right, turning the ignition over now. Sweet, so the fuel pump is working. It's actually pumping a decent amount of fuel through the lines. So now we're gonna have to see if this is the gas we put in it or if it's old fuel. It looks like it might be old. Put this fuel line out. All right, so here's our fuel. This is most definitely the old fuel. If you guys remember from the last video or the beginning of this video, the old fuel looked just like this same color. So this is definitely the old fuel. So this could be the problem why it's not running on its own. Let's try to give this thing a shot. Oh, maybe it's not getting fuel again. Oh. Definitely gonna need help with this because I don't know what to do. When we put gas through the intake, it runs just fine. And yesterday it started running on its own for about 5 minutes. Can't see anywhere where it's leaking fuel. I think we're just gonna have to look through the fuel injection system. Probably gonna have to put new injectors in it, something like that. But we're gonna get this thing running on its own and driving in this video, I promise. All right, so I managed to get the throttle body off. That's what this thing looks like up top. I had to unhook this cable here, this hose, whatever throttle mechanism this is, this throttle cable right here, and also this hose. I've already got all the nuts off of the air intake, so hopefully we can lift this thing up and find the fuel injectors under here. And then we're gonna turn the key over and see if those will pump the fuel through. And that's probably our problem, that the fuel injectors are clogged up or have a bad gasket or seal and they're leaking to the point where it's not getting gas to run on its own. Catch you guys when we get this thing off and see if the injectors are working. All right, me and my buddy Jack managed to get the intake manifold off of this thing. Here's the fuel rail. I think my fuel injectors are back behind it. I don't think these are the fuel injectors. They might be. I think they might be the oil injectors. I'm not too positive. And I did figure out these are the coolant lines, not the oil pump lines. We're gonna see if we can unbolt this fuel rail right here, or we can get to the fuel injectors. All right, so me and Jack did get the fuel injectors out. They honestly don't look too bad. We're gonna make sure the fuel is still getting through the lines to the fuel rail. Jack, go ahead and turn it on. All right, so it's still pumping fuel through. It's still got that old gas look color to it. I don't think that's the premix we put in it. All right, so we got the fuel injectors out and we did clean them. They do work, but now we're gonna see if they actually shoot the fuel through with it in the fuel rail. Go ahead and turn it over, Jack. Oh yeah. Do it again. Hang on. All right, so that is a really good sign that the fuel injectors are working. So now we know it's gonna get fuel. Now we gotta make sure once we put everything back together, is it gonna run on its own with the fuel being stable? Me and Jack are gonna put it back together and see if this thing will fire up and run on its own. Alright guys, so me and Jack got everything put back together on the RX-7. All the vacuum lines, fuel injectors, the throttle body, everything is hooked back up the way it was. Jack, go ahead and turn that key, see if this thing turns on. Fuel pump's running. I guess go ahead and give it a shot. Hope and pray. All right, so we figured the battery didn't have enough voltage to turn the starter over if you could hear it. Also, we figured it wasn't getting spark or that it was flooded. Even with spraying starting fluid or fuel into the intake, it was not firing up or even trying. Me and Jack took all 4 spark plugs out. Here's 3 of the spark plugs. Me and Jack did clean them. Right here is what they looked like before, so you can definitely tell they were very gunked up. Me and Jack are gonna hook the spark plugs back up, see if it's still getting spark. If it is, we're gonna put them back in and see if this thing will turn over and run on its own. Jack, go ahead and fire this thing up. Oh. Let off. It's running on its own. First time in 30 years that it's running on its own. We're not spraying any gas into it. Keep giving it gas. Keep giving it gas. I wanted to get on here and explain a little bit. The reason why the car is running so rough, 1, we have a vacuum leak. 2, there is still some bad fuel mixed in. 3, whenever I did my fuel mixture, I put in way too much oil mixture. So that is my fault. Now that's not going to destroy this engine. If anything, it'll help it. But it was actually running so rich to the point where we were flooding the engine and it wouldn't get enough spark. Let alone with the vacuum leak and some of the bad fuel mixed in. This thing just was not going to run right. So that is why this thing's running and revving high and bogging down. So before you guys get in here and clown me for not knowing how to drive a manual, that is not the case. You'll see at the very end of this video, we do get it running right. You just got to stay to the end to see that.
Not my way. Go. Hang on. Wow, you big-headed monkey. Whoa. Nope. Look at that. One car, he's out again.
We think it is still getting bad fuel. Also, I didn't really notice till after I already mixed the fuel, but I mixed it way too much, which isn't too much of a bad thing. It's actually a lot better for the engine, but we think it's so rich that it's not able to fire and keep a steady idle. It's pretty much having a really rough idle, and when you hit the gas, it's a really late response. The transmission seemed to work. The only problem is with it not running right, you can't really drive it, let alone... My dad put this car on hydraulics. In the last video, I mentioned the fitting down here. It is leaking. This thing dumps hydraulic fluid out, so the front isn't even able to rise up anymore. We can only get the rear to come up. So I'm sure you heard it in the video when we backed it up down the driveway. It did crush the fender up there. Definitely want to get that fixed before we take it down the road, because if that thing collapses going down the road, it is going to destroy that fender, and I don't want to take a chance with how nice and rare this car is. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comment down below, give us any ideas and any helpful thoughts that you might know to help us get this RX-7 running right. Because in the next video, after we get this thing running right, we're going to be driving it down the road and actually do a first drive on this thing. Not just down the driveway and back. We're going to actually take it around the neighborhood and drive it for the first time. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I hope you guys enjoy. I'll catch you guys in the next video. My buddy Jack had the bright idea to drain the fuel again and put just regular 87. And this thing is running like it's never had a problem running ever. Listen to that thing purr. Give it some gas. Now obviously it's got to run some warm up, and we got to clear out all that bad fuel. It's got to learn to run right again. But that is a running car. It is running on its own. Told you guys we would get this thing running on its own and driving. Now it does drive. We're gonna see if we can fix the hydraulic system. This thing might be ready to drive. Definitely don't want to take the chance of this thing dropping, moving down the road and completely destroying the front end.